I think that it's time to have ourselves a bit of a parable. For you see, there is no greater proving ground in the world of motorsport than Nürburgring Nordschleife. Located in scenic Nürburg, Germany, the fated North Loop of the Nürburgring is a daunting, nearly 13-mile course, fraught with challenging corners and a slew of complex elevation changes. And while anybody is welcome to try their hand at conquering it, automotive manufacturers rely on Nordschleife to demonstrate beyond a shadow of doubt that their cars are the best in the world. At the time of this video, the current record holder is Mercedes-AMG, with their Project 1 hypercar completing the course in 6 minutes, 30 seconds. Which begs the question, is there a winning formula for dominating this particular course? Let's talk about it. We've gone through the rankings with a fine-toothed comb, pulling out 30 different records from roughly 110. We then compiled performance data for these 30 vehicles, specifically their curb weights, rated horsepowers, estimated weight-to-power ratios, as well as their rated top speeds. And when you arrange that data by order of interval behind first place, you will notice something a bit strange. Namely, there is no correlation between a car's finish time and any of the aforementioned statistics. The numbers bounce around entirely at random. Perhaps most perplexing of these vehicles is the outlier of the Rimac Nevera. This is the heaviest vehicle of the bunch at nearly 2.5 tons, yet it has nearly twice the horsepower of the next most powerful vehicle. Its weight-to-power ratio, then, is truthfully the most optimal of any vehicle in the list. And yet, it finished in a ranked position of 25. And things get worse from there. Many vehicles you'd expect to see on this list didn't even break the top 100. The Koenigsegg CCX and CCR are ranked 125 and 131 respectively. The Jaguar XJ220 is ranked 193, finishing a full second slower than a Hyundai Ioniq 5. So if there is a lesson to be taken away from all of this, it's that raw speed and raw power have diminishing returns. Of course, anyone who understands motoring would have already recognized this as a given. When Madeline did her discussion of the Koenigsegg 1-to-1 speedrun in NFS Rivals, she explained how a car with a lower top speed can still maintain a higher average speed when competing against cars in a higher performance class. If the Mercedes-AMG Project 1 completed the course with an average speed of 119 miles per hour, then the Rimac Nevera averaged 110, and the slow as molasses XJ220 only averaged 99.9 miles per hour. We could actually make a rather bold statement that if any vehicle with a top speed of 120 could maintain 100% of its top speed for its entire run, then even an economy car like a Chevrolet Equinox could defeat the Mercedes-AMG Project 1. Which is why you simply do not trust performance data. Getting down to it, there are a variety of factors in play whenever a racing course is run, be it Nordschleife or anywhere else in the world. Average speed will be affected by entry speed into a corner, by the tread wear on each tire, by the amount of fuel left in the tank, because fuel adds weight, and perhaps most importantly, the condition of the driver behind the wheel. If the driver is at their physical best, they may have a shot of saving a few seconds on a good run. Alternately, mistakes in their judgment might result in a comparatively worse run. And much like with the car, physiological metrics can be just as random, therefore making them meaningless as a comparison tool. Do you see where I am coming from here? Nobody is arguing that men and women can't be built differently as they age, yet there are two fundamental problems with the logic. Firstly, the ranges of hormones can vary by orders of magnitude. In men, for example, testosterone values can range from 200 nanograms per deciliter to more than 1,000. Testosterone is not, and never was, the singular decisive variable for things like muscle mass, cardiac output, or bone density. All of these things can also be affected by specific proteins and amino acids, distribution of body fat, and even the presence of, you guessed it, estrogens in the body, even within men. Leading to the second problem in that the sizes of women and men can and do overlap quite a bit, in much the same way as the motor vehicle example we laid out earlier. And when it comes down to engaging in specific activities, more is not always better. Let us take basketball as an example. Let's say you wanted to shoot from the free throw line and get the ball into the basket. A basketball is approximately 5/8 of a kilogram because it is filled with air. It is literally the equivalent of an air bubble. You are throwing it approximately 16 feet from where you are standing. Taking the forces of gravity into account, there are mathematical formulas which allow you to solve for the needed force to make the shot. According to Gemini, it is around 38 newtons of force. That is the equivalent of lifting a gallon of milk or a light bowling ball off the ground and holding it steady against the force of gravity. Last I checked, both men and women can pick up gallon jugs of milk with their bare hands. Attempting to add more than the required force would simply result in the ball either hitting the backboard and bouncing off, or straight up missing the hoop entirely. Furthermore, basketball is one of those fancy team sports, not that we would know anything about being on a team, that, as it may, effective communication and the ability to execute plays requiring multiple players of varying skill level pretty much eradicates any argument about individual player performance. Where basketball is concerned, men and women can compete on an even playing field, and the data does not make a lick of difference to the outcome. We could do this for literally any activity under the sun if we really wanted to. And yet, it probably wouldn't help because you will still have people who simply refuse to acknowledge the real-world applications because these people make sexism their entire worldview. And it's downright sad because these are the same people who wouldn't dare levy the same criticisms against someone of their own gender. Just to really dial the point home, here's a scene from Dragon Ball Z Abridged, which explains it better than I ever could.
However, you will never, ever defeat me with that form.
But why? It's so strong!
Oh yeah, in raw power, it can't be beat. But the amount of concentrated energy causes an extreme expansion in mass. The body can't compensate. And while you'll see a 50% power increase, you'll see a 75% decrease in speed and mobility. You'd never hit your opponent.
Even though the scene is about fictitious fighting with power levels in the millions, the logic remains sound. Even when someone is bigger or stronger, their body compensates by being slower or somehow less resilient. Everything is a trade-off, and there are always diminishing returns. Really, when it gets down to it, the nature of sports is to defy the statistics. If you could predict a player's performance based entirely on biometrics, then it wouldn't be a spectacle. You would simply cultivate the elite athlete in some Russian laboratory and have them steamroll literally everyone else on the planet. Mind you, this has been the plot of many a sports movie, and it always ends with the weaker athlete coming out on top in some kind of miracle upset. If you can apply that logic to people of the same gender, then you have to apply that same logic to people of the opposite gender. There is no double standard other than sexism. And perhaps the final nail in the coffin is that nobody really cares about first place anyway. Bringing it back to motorsport because that is our bread and butter here, hitting the top spot is not as important as simply making it on the podium. That's why when you have, say, 200,000 people competing in Motorfest, you rank the best 10,000 or 20,000 evenly. They are all winners. You don't necessarily care about a driver's finishing time because it only serves as the best time for that track on that particular day. If a driver has a bad day, they might come back later and shore up their time by a full 10 seconds. It might change them from 13,000th place to 11,000th place, yet it's all kinda relative. But even something as straightforward as this has its own degree of animosity among combatants. This is something Madeline has experienced personally. Recall that she had to completely replay Need for Speed Heat due to footage corruption, meaning she had to beat the game from start to finish twice in just a few days. There were men who confronted her saying it wasn't possible for her to have done this. Yet those same men argued during the conversation that a male speedrunner could beat the game twice in a single day. It really makes you think, doesn't it? I think I am going to leave it at that. I have said all I can say, so I will be taking off, and I will be seeing you all in a future video. Take care for now.